on this episode of Slainte. We're back in Halifax, Nova Scotia, as we check out the city's very first cidery, Chain Yard Urban Cidery. We'll talk to the 4 partners about their use of locally grown apples and learn the story behind the unique brand and name of this one-of-a-kind North End location.
So we're headed to Chain Yard Urban Cidery in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Located in the North End on Agricola Street, this is actually Halifax's first urban cidery. They're known for making their products from locally sourced apples, so I'm really excited to see if I can taste the difference. Let's go.
Before learning the full history of this inviting location, I wanted to learn about the cider making process. And there wasn't a better way to do that than from the head cider maker, Jay.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you got involved with making cider?
Yeah, cider has been a passion of mine for almost 15 years now. What really got me into cider, I had the opportunity to live and work in Ireland. And I was working in a pub. And every Thursday, I think it was, these 4 gentlemen would come in and they had bottles of what looked like cider. And I later learned that it was scrumpy. Scrumpy is a type of cider. I would watch them taste it, sniff it. They would take, an hour or so to really taste through their cider. And that really fascinated me. I wanted to learn what they were doing. They eventually let me into their inner circle, so to speak, and let me try what they were doing. And that just blew me away. It made me realize that so many different styles could be created from simple apples.
So it really came down to almost one moment.
It certainly did.
Now, where do you get your apples for your cider?
We get most of our apples from Noggin's farm, and that's in the valley, the Annapolis Valley. He provides us with about 90% of our supply. We also work with smaller growers throughout Nova Scotia, and this is something that really excites us here at Chain Yard. And the main reason for this is most of these trees are quite old, and they're providing fruit that has really unique complexities, things like higher tannins, higher sugars, unique styles of acid. So this is something we're very excited about working with.
Do any of your apples come from outside of Nova Scotia?
No, they're all from Nova Scotia.
Is that important to you guys here?
It is, yeah, certainly. We really want to touch on the terroir of what we're doing. We really want to highlight the apples that are grown here in Nova Scotia. And that's what we do in our cidery.
How many different types of cider have you guys made here?
So we've done 28, and we've done quite a few casks too. So casks are individual 17.5 liter ferments, and we don't classify those as a release or a particular style. We just have fun making them.
Is there a particular type of yeast that you use here? Is it a house yeast, or do you bring it in from a different location?
So what's really cool about our yeasts is we've done many different styles. So we'll have about 6 different, let's call them mainstay yeasts that we use. These help highlight the different flavor profiles we're trying to pull out from the juices. But we've also done wild ferments, and this really excites us here because what that implies is we use an indigenous yeast. So we don't inoculate. We don't give that product any yeast whatsoever. And this is the yeast that's naturally occurring on the fruit and comes from the orchard itself. So really what we're doing is we're highlighting the terroir of that particular orchard. That's really cool. So to answer your question, we've used probably about 13 different yeasts so far.
13 different yeasts, 28 different types of ciders. How long have you guys been open?
1 year.
That seems like a lot.
We're having fun.
Nova Scotia has a lot of apples, and we have a lot of old orchards. Do you think that's helpful for us here in the process of making cider?
Oh, absolutely. For the longest time, we've had access to mostly culinary varieties. So these are what we term as dessert apples. So things like Honeycrisp, Spartan, Macintosh. In my humble opinion, it's difficult to make a great cider from those apples. And the reason for that is they lack tannins, they lack complexity. It's just water, sugar. So what we're really working on is working with growers, working with orchardists to bring in a lot of the varieties that used to grow here. So we're working with growers to plant these varieties and also introduce or graft scion wood onto existing trees to produce these particular varieties for the future. So we're getting a lot of positive feedback, and growers are very interested in doing this. This will really help the cider industry grow here in Nova Scotia and really diversify the style of cider too.
After getting to hear Jay's story, I was eager to learn the ins and outs of creating the product and to get a tour of this urban cidery.
So where does your whole process start here with cider making?
So it usually starts in one of these 3 tanks here. So these are what are known as fermenters.
So the juice comes in, you guys put it in here to ferment?
Correct, yep.
Perfect, then what happens?
So we ferment it. Again, that can take anywhere from 2.5 weeks up to a couple months, depending on the process, depending on the style that we're trying to create. Once it's gone through its fermentation process, we can cold crash it. So we'll drop the temperature right down to about 5 degrees. And what that does is it helps precipitate out all of the biomass. Drops to the bottom and also puts the yeast in a dormant state. This allows us to use way less SO2. We use a product called KMS, and it's potassium metabisulfate. It's sulfur dioxide. This is what's naturally created in wines. It's what's used to kill ferments. A lot of wineries will use quite a bit of SO2 to destroy or kill off their yeast. What we like to do is cold crash the wine first and then rack it off what's known as the lees, which is the biomass that's sitting at the bottom of the tank. So once the fermentation has gone through its completion, we'll rack it off into a tank and then we'll start with our filtration. So we usually do about 3 different filtrations, again, depending on the style. But if we do a filtration on a cider, we do 4 different filtrations. And this comes down to micron size. So typically we'll do a rough filtration, what's known as a mid filtration, and then a fine filtration. Once the cider has reached its fine filtration, it's about 2 micron. From there, you can see this tank here. This is what's known as a pressure tank or a bright tank. And this is what carbonates our cider. We really like to do different styles. What we find is our demographic likes all different styles. They like to come in and see what's new, what's different. And we like to have fun creating those products for that demographic.
Next up on Slainte, we talked to partners Brian, Susan, and Michael to learn how the search for this location inspired their name.
It's like classic Nova Scotia to go cider, right? But it's like cider with a completely new twist.
After getting the full tour of the cider making process from Jay, I now wanted to talk to the remaining 3 partners and learn the origin of Chain Yard Urban Cidery. First up was Brian, the cidery's sales manager.
Tell me how you got involved in cider making.
Mike, Susan, and I had always been really good friends. We started off working together years ago, and kind of always talked about, like, when are we going to start our empire, when are we going to start a business together. And I guess almost 2 years ago now, we were like, hey, let's get into the cider game. We always loved the craft industry and just thought, you know, it'd be cool to do cider in Halifax. Cider's been done outside the city, but not in HRM. So we were kind of like, let's give her a go. So yeah, with Chain Yard, I am like the sales manager. I take care of all the sales and deliveries for our cider to our licensees. So it's a very busy job right now. Obviously, we were getting more and more accounts, which is awesome. My background actually worked in the service industry for about 17 years. 3 of us combined, I think, we had like over 50 years experience working in this industry. So we kind of like, hey, let's try to do something on our own.
Well, it seems like a good location for it. I mean, you're in Nova Scotia. We have so many apples. Why not?
Yeah, for sure. Like, and that was one thing we, doing our research, like, I think apples is, if not the biggest, one of the top 3 or 4 exports out of Nova Scotia, which is super awesome. So 100% Nova Scotian to the core.
Who came up with the slogan, drink more apples?
When we started to do the business and we contacted a designer to help work us try to make this look like as awesome as it looks, we were just tossing around like ideas and I don't know who said it, but somebody said drink more apples, and we're like, oh my God, like, and we looked it up on the internet, like nobody else had said drink more apples, so we're like, we got to do it. So we used it as our main slogan. It's been great. An apple a day keeps the doctor away, and that saying we learned we went to a conference in the States, was actually about apple cider, like way back in the day. It was a way for people to drink cider rather than have an apple.
Yeah, how perfect is that?
Oh,
if you don't have the fresh fruit, you can always have a glass.
Yeah.
While talking to Brian, it was made clear that the apple branding was an important aspect of Chain Yard Urban Cidery. I now wanted to know more of their choice to utilize local apples by speaking to their marketing partner, Susan.
You guys seem to take a lot of your ingredients and the fruit, the apples from the community around you. Is that really important for you guys, or did it just happen to work out that way?
Yeah, no, 100%. That is very important for us. We like to support our local farmers here in Nova Scotia, so we've always had the mandate that our product is 100% Nova Scotia fruit and apples, and will always remain that way.
You guys must be really excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. No, it always feels good to support the growers in the apple industry and to kind of showcase their hard work and what they do.
Why did you choose Agricola Street for your home here?
So we shopped around a lot of different places. We knew we wanted to be in Halifax, and we wanted to be in the North End, but we weren't set on that. But after looking around at different spots that were available, we really found when this place went for sale, when it was Fred's Salon and Cafe before, it seemed like the perfect spot for good foot traffic, as well as being a really developing area in Nova Scotia.
How did you guys come up with your name and your logo, which seem to go hand in hand?
Yeah, so we came up with the name basically from looking around at different locations and where we wanted to have the cidery in the tap room. Everywhere that we looked at had like a chain link fence around it. So we started to refer to it as, when are we going to find our own chain yard? So when we found this spot here, it didn't have a chain link fence, but the name was kind of already set for us as being Chain Yard.
Do you feel like the community around you has really supported you in being here? You feel welcome?
Yeah, we definitely feel welcome. We were kind of welcomed by the North End Business Association when we started here, and a lot of the neighboring businesses have been really supportive with both putting our cider on tap at their restaurants or their space, or just having a really good network to draw from for support.
A welcoming community has been a great asset to Chain Yard's success. And to learn a bit more of the story, it was now time to talk to the fourth partner and operations manager, Michael.
Mike, how did you decide that you wanted to own a cidery?
So our big passion is for craft products, and we wanted to make a product in the city, in the North End, that we could use 100% Nova Scotia apples or fruit. So we decided cider was a good place, a good idea to have in the city, so we went with that.
So you guys have known each other for a while?
Yes, Susan and I have known each other actually since high school, and started dating in university. And Brian and I started working as lowly busboys at Pacifico, I think in 2004, something like that. And and Susan and Brian worked at another restaurant together as well.
You guys use a lot of local products. Do you use anything besides apples?
Yeah, so we've done ciders with cranberry. We actually have strawberry juice arriving tomorrow, and a few other blueberries and peaches.
And it's all Nova Scotia product?
It's all Nova Scotia product.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Have you had a lot of people come in and either say, no, I don't drink cider, and then really gravitate to something that you guys serve here?
Yeah, I think there is an idea that cider has to be sweet. So some people aren't into the sweetness of some other ciders. So I think we've kind of tried to do the whole gamut of very, very dry to semi-sweet. So we can usually find a cider that someone will like, even non-cider drinkers.
What are some of the events that you guys do here?
One of our busiest events is actually BYOBB, which is Bring Your Own Baby to a Bar. We started that with a few guests actually asked if we do any events that are very kid-friendly, and we said not at the moment, but we thought about it more, and we came up with an idea to play movies for the kids with wireless headphones. We have coloring packs on the tables, and we have a whole different brunch menu for the kids.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Do you guys do any collaborations with your neighbors?
Yeah, so we've actually used some of the moonshine from Compass Distillery just down the street. We also are doing right now a snake bite, which is a half cider, half beer with Boxing Rock, and that's in the NSLC right now.
Was there a specific moment when you realized either that yes, cider was for you, or that you were like, oh man, I have to offer this to the people around me?
We've always been big cider fans. Everywhere we traveled, we saw that the cider industry was growing and growing, usually following the craft brewing industry. So we just thought it was time for Halifax to have this.
Next up on Slainte. We've heard the history. Now it's time to sit down with head cider maker Jay to try their ever-growing product line, including a few special samples that he's taken straight from the barrel. Through the stories of all four partners, it was clear this Agricola Street location was delivering as a staple of Halifax. Now it was time to taste the product that has granted them so much success.
Okay, so first of all, this is amazing. It's like a tree.
It's kind of cool.
Apples on it.
There you go.
That's exactly what was that what you guys were going for?
I don't think so, but
Really?
that's perfect.
What are we tasting today?
So today we're going to taste through three of our mainstays. That's our Intrepid, our Foundation hopped up. We have a very nice Pippin's Russet blend. So we'll start with the driest first.
Sure.
And that will be the Pippin.
The Pippin. Oh,
And
so we're starting right off with your specialty.
You got it.
Oh my goodness.
So we ferment in a style that really pulls out those aromatics. So you'll get some big, almost like tropical fruit on the nose.
Oh, like pineapple.
Yep, definitely pineapple.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But there's no pineapple in this.
No pineapple in it.
Okay. There's so much flavor.
There's a lot going on, for sure.
Wow.
And one thing we take great pride in is low sugar, but almost a perceived sweetness coming through.
Yeah.
So the first sensation you're going to experience is the aromatics. It's going to hit your nose, and that will translate to a flavor on your palate.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, it's very dry, as you were saying, but very flavorful. Very nice, but not overly sweet. What's the next one I should try?
I think the next one we will try is the Intrepid.
Okay.
And the reason for that is it's the same sugar level as the Pippin. What's very intriguing about this particular cider is it's a single variety. We're keeping it dry. So there's no room for mistake. No faults can be hidden in a cider like this. We can't cover that up with sugar. It's a very dry, very traditional style cider, and it's made from 100% Northern Spy apple.
Okay. And this is one of your regulars.
It is, yes.
Oh, that's very nice.
It's dry, it's clean, very easy drinking.
What's next?
The next one we're going to get you to try is the hopped up.
Okay.
So this is actually our Intrepid base. We dry hop it. And we dry hop with Cascade and Centennial hops. And what we're going for here is a citrus-forward flavor. We use special fermentation techniques to drop out the heavier alpha oils in the hops. So you won't get any bitterness, just a very clean citrus-forward style of hop cider.
And just so people understand the difference between hopping something and dry hopping, can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
So wet hopping implies the actual wet hop. Whereas dry, it usually implies pelletized hops. And one thing you'll get right on the nose is that hop forward sort of citrus aromatics coming through.
But it's very fresh smelling.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you. So you'll probably get big hops on the forefront there.
It's very floral, which I wouldn't have necessarily thought was the hops coming through, because usually you think of it as being very bitter.
Right, sure.
It's dry to my palate, but not bitter at all.
Right.
And you're right, it does taste or feel like it's sweet, but you're telling me there's not much in there at all. So that's very interesting.
It's kind of fun.
All right, last but not least.
So foundation. This is kind of our staple, sort of flagship style. What we're going for here is tropical fruit. So you'll get tropical fruit on the mid palate and a little bit of fruit to finish. Very clean, refreshing finish. We play with different tannins too, and those tannins will really kind of lend themselves into that flavor profile to combine with that tropical fruit-like flavor. So right on the nose, you should get some big apple and a little bit of sort of distant tropical fruit.
Yeah, very, very much apple. Kind of like old barnyard apples.
There you go.
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah, again, not sweet, a little dry, very easy to drink, beautiful in the hot sun, I feel like.
Yes, exactly.
And what kind of apples do you use for this?
So those, we use a blend. So primarily Spies, Golden Russet, and Macintosh.
I grew up in the valley next to a lot of apple orchards, so it's nice to see it in a form that I'm more likely to enjoy.
That's what I like to do.
So you've also gone and taken some samples from the barrels.
Yeah. This is what's known as a Brett cider, which implies that it's fermented with Brettanomyces. You might hear Brettanomyces to describe a particular bacteria on grapes. It's viewed as a fault in winemaking, but in cider making, it can add some really interesting character.
Oh, wow.
It does some strange things to the nose.
I'm not 100% sure what I'm smelling.
Right.
But I like it. We used to get an old apple cider, and we used to buy it from the local people down the street. And it kind of reminds me of that. It wasn't a fully filtered apple cider. It kind of had a lot of character to it.
More rustic?
Yeah, so it's really taking me back to that kind of...
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, it is. I love it. Okay, let me try this. Oh, how fascinating.
It's interesting.
No, but I love how, it's obviously apple, but how complex it is in the mouth, and it's a little bit more of a fuller feel as you're drinking it, which maybe is from the yeast.
It definitely has a heavier mouthfeel, bigger texture for sure. A lot of that has to do with the biomass that's still in the product, and that's one of the reasons why we will leave this one unfiltered.
Oh, good.
Whereas something,
I love it.
Like our mainstays, we will want to filter that and make it nice and clean. And the last one here is this is a single variety Pippin as well, but this is known as a Ribston Pippin. This one really highlights what we were discussing, that big sort of tropical fruit. In fact, I can't even pinpoint the fruits that I'm getting in this, so it'd be really interesting to hear your feedback.
Oh gosh, all right.
You almost get like a spring meadow thing going on too. It's
baking. That's what apple baking.
Okay, yeah.
Fresh apples. It smells much sweeter than it tastes.
Yeah, this is dry, no sugar whatsoever.
Very dry. I almost thought it was going to be, kind of tropically apples and papaya, no?
Yeah, sure, mango papaya.
Sure, maybe. Yeah, sure, that's in there.
It reminds me of Nova Scotian Tidal Bay. It's got the acid, it's got that
very
fruit forward.
acidic, yeah. I feel like a lot of wine drinkers would like that.
That's kind of what we're going for. In fact, this product will be available, we will do a few kegs, but primarily in 750 bottles. So it will be served in a wine bottle.
After spending a day at Chain Yard Urban Cidery, it had become clear why they have garnered so much attention in Nova Scotia. Their use of all local apples shines through with their crisp and clean ciders. Some of the flavors really taking me back to the days of baking with my grandmother. I'm very much looking forward to returning soon to see what new additions they have to their ever-growing line.